In an ordinary city, everything went normally, but this was about to change, until the day the moon turned red. Since then supernatural incidents have taken over the streets, and in the midst of this chaos, the protagonist can consider himself lucky, as he has a ghost family that protects him from everything and everyone. Walking calmly through the streets, Prota tells us a little about how humans are living. Apparently large walls were raised around the city, but even so that didn't stop everyone from living in fear and distrust, and in the midst of all this situation, the protagonist knows that there was a light to save him from all that, and entering a building that looked more abandoned, he knew that his family was on his side. When he got home, someone apparently was preparing the food, while a woman talked on the phone. A little girl wonders why her brother was taking so long, because it was past time for him to get home. Busy with the call, that woman didn't even pay attention to the child. Opening the door slowly, the protagonist had arrived home, and introducing him, his name was Lu Xian, and that little girl from earlier, we now found out that she is his sister, and is very happy that he finally came home. Like every younger sister, she likes toys a lot, so she had asked Lucian to bring her a teddy bear, and as a good older brother, that's exactly what Prota did. At 17, yes, the little girl's name is 17, she was very happy with the gift her brother gave her, and that woman on the phone, she says that the protagonist arrived at the right time, because she will need to leave urgently, so he would have to play with her sister. Prota addresses her as her mother, and asks her if she won't stay for dinner, since it was almost time. She says that she will be back quickly, since it was just a problem with her neighbor, but we also see that she grabs a pair of scissors before leaving, and even though Lu Xian insisted that she stay, in the end, he said that everything was fine. Our Prota works part-time, and now he could finally enjoy a nice family dinner. Although his family was very strange, suddenly, a man starts screaming in the kitchen of that house, where he seemed to complain about Lu Xian and 17 having entered his kitchen, and also complaining about the food, which was strange since he had cooked it himself. You could see that the crazy man didn't fit the ideas well, and outside, a police officer passed in front of his window, which made him yell at them immediately, because every single day, that damn Sirene disturbed his judgment. His sister 17 holding her brother's shirt, says she is scared. Prota tries to calm her down, and referring to that man as her father, says that everything will be fine. Opening the door and already complaining to him, his mother arrives, asking him to stop making a scandal. On his shoulder there is a stain of you-know-what, which makes the protagonist question himself about another day, that he sees her coming home like that, yelling at that man. She asks the children to get out of there, because apparently she was the startling. Looking at her, that man treats her very badly, saying that she deserved to go to base. She says that in his eyes, everyone deserved it, except him, but that doesn't matter, since in the end, he would also, in addition to saying that at school, while everyone was doing well, he looked more like a larva, with blood in his eyes, and hit her, who even so, continued to insult him. And then while all this was going on, in the corner of the hallway, apparently scared, 17 begins to laugh Joker style, at the same time that she begins to crawl across the ceiling of the apartment, repeating that situation is very fun. In the midst of all this confusion, in a world where contamination by the red moon predominates, Lu Xian believes that having a complete family makes him a very lucky guy. From afar, someone seems to observe him, the real thing, that no member of his family could be seen. So those stalkers wonder, how could someone alone make that? The truth is that this was an organization responsible for hiring people with psychic powers, and they believed that Lucian could have a strong indication of a mutation. Since then they have been watching him. They even tried to enter his dream world, to try to find out something, but every time that happened, it was almost impossible to get out of it. The next day at his job, the protagonist was helping a new hire at the company, and as usual, some people in the background were mumbling about having to waste time helping newbies. One of the employees communicates Lucian that the director is calling him. When he arrives at his office, he receives a task, which in this case she takes a document to a coffee shop, which was something strange, since only administrators would do something like that. Of course, as he was the boss, Prota just accepts, but a strange woman was sitting in an armchair very close to him, and after observing his legs, she noticed his look, which made Prota extremely embarrassed and made him leave the room. And as it was really all very strange, apparently all that was a plan of that woman, who in this case is the same one who had been watching him for a long time, because she was curious if she could recruit him. The director says he did everything everything she asked, so now he wanted to know the project she had for him, but on his desk, she throws something like a hypnosis, which makes that man forget everything that had happened, including her. After that, she leaves her room. On the subway towards the coffee shop, the prota gives her place to a pregnant woman, who thanks him kindly. While standing going towards her destination, walking through the ceiling 17 appears. Lucian wondered why she had followed him. Her sister seemed to be amused by the rocking of the subway, and while holding on to the railing, she made the whole train shake. All she really wanted was to play. However, the prota couldn't at the moment, and told her that they didn't. They could keep talking, since if people saw this, they would think he was crazy, since no one saw her, and with a scary look, she told him to be careful, because the place where he was going, there was something very wrong, and leaving giving kisses to the passengers, she leaves the subway. After arriving at her destination, Prota walks quietly through the streets, despite having the constant feeling of being watched, and it was no wonder, since that woman's team was all watching him, and even named him number 13. Another important detail is that the cafeteria that Lu Xian was going to deliver the document was outside the walls that protected the city from the Red Moon. Basically, IT has everything to go wrong. The reality is that all that was nothing more than a potential test, because the organization believed that they could recruit him to work with ENTI contamination, and that coffee shop had danger level 1. That woman's team was all prepared in case something very bad happened. After finally entering, Lu finds something strange, since the cafeteria was crowded, and outside, the streets were deserted. The attendant, after receiving the documents, offers him a coffee on the house, but the prota does not accept it at first, but looking at the irresistible appearance, he accepts it in the end. But looking at the attendant, a gigantic tail comes out of his back, and with several eyes on his body, ends up releasing one of his inside Lu Xin's cafe, who goes into shock for not knowing what was happening. After noticing everything around him, he tries to reject that coffee. However, the attendant insists on him to taste it, trying to stay calm. He knows he needs to get out of there as soon as possible, so he tries to run quickly to the entrance, but looking around, all the customers seem to be looking at him, so he opens the door and runs away. The organization did not understand what was happening, because when contacting the cafeteria, they had some plans in mind. At the very least, Lu Xian should have been contaminated, and they wanted to use this opportunity to better study what was happening there, and also see if Prota's psychic abilities would be utilized. But in the end, none of this had happened, so that woman suggests they go to Plan 4. After so much running, Lu Xian arrives at a station, and sitting down to rest, he remembers what the 17th told him about there being a monster in the cafe. But while he was lost in thought, countless people started to come towards him, and looking closer, he sees that they are all the customers of that coffee shop that he had run away from. The attendant says that he has to drink that coffee, but looking for where to run, he sees that they had blocked the passage, and pointing the cup towards him, the eye that was inside jumped towards him, and after swerving, he gets a loophole to escape, but was soon pulled by them. The organization begins to question itself why he was surrounded so easily, as he seemed to only be a normal person. That woman wonders if maybe he can't control his powers. Then his allies ask her if it's better to finish that test. She agrees, and asks a girl with white hair and an umbrella to get ready, but in the psychic power detector, something strange was being detected, while the contaminated were almost forcing the prota to ingest that eye. But looking at the ceiling, little 17 appears at that moment. Lu Xian asks for help, but she says she can't talk to him, since as he is surrounded by people, they would think he was crazy, so she says that if she helps him, he will probably hate her. The prota says that is not what she was thinking, and that he really needed your help. 17 says that he needs to buy her another toy then, and when he was almost being contaminated, she holds his hand, causing Lu Xin's eyes to turn red, kind of looking like she was sharing powers with him. And now with the two of them together, IT was their turn to attack. With the power coming from his sister, IT was easy for Prota to eliminate all the customers from the cafeteria, and while all this was happening, 17 seemed to be having a lot of fun. On the other side, the organization seemed very impressed with all that, since a minute ago, he was almost being contaminated, and now he was not only moving like a spider, as he was also able to defeat all his enemies, and after a cursory analysis, they deduce that he has a 50% chance of having psychic powers. The cafeteria attendant was still standing, and after praising the prota's speed, his body begins to undergo a giant transformation, causing several tentacles to appear, and with them, he tries to attack Lu Xian, who incredibly dodges everyone. The woman from the organization says that's enough and asks that white-haired girl to get ready to intervene, but her allies call her attention at that moment. The protagonist was simply walking on the ceiling, which leaves them all dumbfounded, because that was a super rare spider contamination, which made the number 13 incredible. When he arrived at an upstairs building, his sister asked him what he wanted to do. Lu Xian said he wanted to report all that, because that monster was huge, so they should get out of there. His says that they were the ones who should be afraid of them, that they weren't supposed to run away. But those tentacles end up finding him at that moment, and the transformation had already reached a very advanced level, which only makes 17 even more excited to play with him, who runs towards him. The organization confirms that that monster has already reached spiritual level 1 and was of enormous danger. He asks his leader if she won't intervene, because it would get very dangerous. She believes that a person with spider-level contamination wouldn't be able to beat a monster without a weapon, but by the way her body ran towards without hesitation, she wants to pay to see, and after Lu Xing rips off that monster's arm, he ends up throwing him in the cameras, which automatically cut the signal with the organization. The leader immediately triggers an operation to fight that monster. But inside, the two seem to be having fun with that whole situation, because little by little, they pulled out every tentacle of that monster, and he himself was even trying to escape. But of course Prota and 17 were not going to let that happen. After hitting him with an iron bar, some of his parts trapped those people that Prota had previously defeated, controlling them, to try to escape, but Lu Xian didn't let that happen, and left sending General to the base, and after cleaning the place, a person inside the cabin was witnessing all this. It is then, that under the control of 17, he goes up to attack him, but before that happens, he Prota him to his sister, because that man was apparently just a guard. 17 wants to finish the job, but after talking, she understands that she should not do that, and apologizes to her brother, asking him not to get angry with her. Seeing that the organization was approaching, to get her teddy bear, Lu Xian and her sister leave that place, and when the leader of the organization and that white-haired woman get there, the two were gone. After everything happened, the two sit on top of a building. 17 asks how he will thank her. Prota says thank you, but in reality what she really wanted was another toy. Lu Xian says he just bought a bear for her. Was that not enough? She says that the more she has the better, and after taking a wave with her, 17 is slowly leaving, and tells him to be careful, because someone was watching him. Lu Xian tries to hold the girl, and asks who is watching him. The strange sister replies that she will not tell anything and continues walking on the wires of the pole. The protagonist decides not to stay here waiting to be attacked by another monster, and quickly comes down from the floor. He hides while observing if those people are normal passers-by or not. Then when he sees that everything is fine, he comes out of hiding. The next moment the boy gets a fright with someone calling his name. It's the same woman from the organization. She offers a ride to a nearby cafe. The protagonist thinks about this invitation because in 23 years of life no one has ever invited him to do anything, especially such a beautiful woman. Anyway, he understands that it's not good to refuse because this woman exudes a terrifying aura. But before he tries to change the meeting point by saying that he doesn't feel like having a coffee, the girl thinks that Lu Xian is doing well for someone who just faced a sudden attack. She gives a satisfied smile and invites him to a bar. The scene changes to a bar where the two are already seated and the waiter serves a wine. The woman introduces herself as Investigator Jing and shows the badge to prove that she has no bad intentions. Even so, she admits that the attack suffered by the protagonist was planned by her. Lu Xian is not happy to know that. He takes a quick look at the document that the girl shows and realizes that she is a highest-ranking official in the Qingang City Inspectorate. This makes him more confused, because he doesn't understand what a woman of high status would gain by inviting him to drink. In addition, the attack he suffered was produced by her, and it is possible to see that the woman is armed. After many suspicions, the protagonist takes a deep breath and asks what she wants. Jing pours the wine in a glass while explaining that she is from the department that deals with abnormal matters, specializing in dealing with contamination incidents within the walled city. After the Red Moon incident happened, large elite cities started to deal with crazy people who lived outside the wall, but now a very strange thing has awakened and they are are investigating. The protagonist is confused to hear this. The girl then shows a notebook and explains that it is a strange event beyond the comprehension of ordinary people, just like that monster he found in the cafeteria. Lu Xin sees in the notebook that the monster can infect all living beings that have come into close contact with it. Jing says that the Red Moon incident drove more than 70% of the world's population crazy. Nowadays survivors can only live in the main city because it is protected by high walls, but this does not prevent the mental mutations that affect people. His sector gave the name of contamination to it. Lu Xin asks what are the signs of those who are contaminated with the mental mutation. Jing responds that contamination is nothing more than pollution. The affected people will show the same symptoms of a disease similar to the plague, but this type of pollution is different because it is a mental contamination that will cause the person's soul to become depressed, leading some infected to give up on life. Others attack anyone who comes their way. The symptoms are numerous. They are studying because some contaminated people have a significant change inside their bodies, but after they are infected it is impossible to do the treatment to regain consciousness. The girl adds that those people in the coffee shop that the protagonist saw were already contaminated. Lu Xin asks if there is no way to eliminate the source of the problem. Jing puts out the cigarette and replies that doing so does not mean that the contaminated person will recover, and there is not exactly the source of the problem because monsters are only a part of the pollution. Any other contaminated person or object is also at risk of spreading the contamination. A perfect example for this was exactly those people he eliminated in the subway station. The infected who manage to escape will infect other people. This means that as long as someone can escape they will still have the possibility of turning into a new source of pollution. The protagonist says that if this is the case, why are they leaving things that way? Jing says that the intelligence of the first level spirit monsters is not so high, they just infect other people unconsciously, and the infected people don't answer for themselves. Lu Xin asks how she let him into a place with these dangerous things. After all, he could have been contaminated. The protagonist's indignation subsides as he looks at the woman's big melons. Jing laughs, saying that there was no way he could be contaminated because he already was. Lu Xin screams in despair. The woman goes through a few pages of the notebook and shows Lu Xion's photo with all her information. There it is written that the boy has the spider mutation. Jing explains that the mentality of some people became even stronger after the Red Moon incident. The protagonist is one of those people who has psychic abilities. The woman adds that she did an analysis of his skills, and the first of them is that the boy has precise mind control. She then mentions the example of a guy who has in his action team codenamed Gecko. He has achieved 80% control of his own body. Thanks to this he can dodge bullets and use all kinds of firearms almost perfectly. Jing explains that the protagonist can get as good as Gecko because he has an ability called Arachnid by his team. It means that Lu Xin can control his musculoskeletal system like spiders. In addition, the boy can still easily find the whereabouts of other spirit monsters. Based on this information, the organization came to the conclusion that he is perfect for the job of cleaning up the contamination. Lu Xin was silent after hearing things about himself that even he didn't know. After the conversation, the protagonist took a bus towards the east of the satellite city. At this moment we can see him sitting holding an envelope with 10,000 yuan that he received from Jing. The bus arrives at the destination and the protagonist gets off with the other passengers. The satellite city looks very dirty and abandoned, unlike the main city. Lu Xin enters the gate of an old resistance, and a gentleman warns that she is still teaching the children. The protagonist continues forward and finds a woman in a wheelchair having fun with some children. She notices an approach from behind, and when she turns there is no one there. The girl mentally says that she was sure it was Lu Xin, but it must be a thing of his imagination. The protagonist hides behind a wall and puts the money he received in the mailbox. He takes some flowers and leaves them there too, then hurries to leave. The old man says that it would be better for the protagonist to talk directly to Xiao Lu, but anyway he doesn't mind planting again the flowers he always plucks to give her. Lu Xin gives a satisfied smile and thanks the man. On the way back home, the protagonist remembers the conversation he had with Jing. The scene changes to an hour ago when they were still at the bar. Jing praised his performance and said that he needed him to help solve the mutant contamination. It was at that moment that she gave the amount of money, justifying that it was the reward for defeating the coffee maker monster. The protagonist celebrated a lot. Because his salary was only 1,000 yuan, Jing explained that he could receive much more than this amount. The organization's employees receive 30,000 yuan under normal circumstances. Lu Xion's eyes lit up just thinking about receiving this amount every month. But before accepting the job, the protagonist decides to be sincere. He says that these skills that Jing mentioned are far thanks to his sister's talent. He was controlled by her when she destroyed that monster in the coffee shop. This catches the girl off guard because that sister did not appear on any security camera. In this, the moment someone contacts her through the device in her ear, the person on the other end of the line says that Jing has to make a decision now, as it seems that he has severe symptoms of multiple personality. If it is confirmed, it means that he is at risk of losing control, so the organization accepts the responsibility of eliminating him. Jing is about to refuse when the man decides to remind her about what happened to the dreamer after he entered Liu Xian's dream. The guy was eliminated immediately, so they can't think that this kid is someone easy. Jing thinks about it for a while and assumes that the protagonist may develop schizophrenia in the future. Before reaching this conclusion, the woman says that her family is just a thing of her imagination. Her father, mother and sister do not exist. Jing decided to tell the truth because he thought this would be the most effective way to bring the protagonist to reality and prevent him from getting out of control in the future. Liu Xian takes a deep breath and replies that he already knows. In fact, he found out about it when people on the street ignored his family, but he makes it clear that he doesn't care because when he gets home they are there. In addition, his family always comes to his aid when he is in danger. The man warns Jing that the boy is already in the crosshairs and needs her to give the command. The woman turns to Liu Xian and says that she can try to understand that all this power comes from her family, but she asks if the protagonist can guarantee that the family will not possess him. Liu Xian replies that she has nothing to worry about because her family is very good. Her sister is a child who loves toys. His father is an honest man who always stays in the kitchen, and his mother is a very kind woman. Jing observes his behavior and declares that he looks like a normal person. The scene changes to the protagonist still on the way back home. He remembers everything that happened at the bar and fears that the organization will not believe him. Suddenly a car bumps into the boy and he looks scared. Jing lowers the car window and asks him to get in. The protagonist obeys. She explains that the action team decided to recruit him. For now he is a temporary recruit with a salary of 5,000 per month. All he needs to do is sign the document. The boy reads the part that interests him the most, which is the monthly salary of 5,000 yuan during the trial period, and declares that this agreement is not harmful. Jing says that his job will be to investigate and clean up the source of contamination, but it is good to keep in mind that these places are dangerous. The protagonist signs the document and gives it to her, saying that he understood. The woman is surprised because he signed it immediately after hearing the word danger. The protagonist says that when he was in the orphanage he heard that there were few people left in the world due to the Red Moon incident, so he thinks it would be good to destroy the contamination as soon as possible to get back to the life he had before. Jing sees the smile on his face and is relieved. She hands over a box saying that she has many important items that he will use. The protagonist opens the box and the first thing that catches his attention is a gun. The woman hands over a second phone and says that she will provide information for him. In addition, the only recorded contact is hers. Liu Xian is so embarrassed that he starts to imagine the girl declaring herself and saying that he is only hers, but Jing quickly takes him out of this fantasy and asks if he heard what she said. The protagonist disguises and replies that he was only thinking a little, but the woman is no fool and knew he was dreaming about her. At that moment she stops at the traffic light and decides to explain some basic rules. First, that he should not use the skills if he goes through some moment of danger in everyday life. Thinking about it, he will give 3 suggestions. First, if he has time he should run to the guard's office in City 2. At that moment Jing comes closer and says that the second suggestion is to call her. Finally, he should use the weapon. After the rule she goes back to talking about the values. The reward for eliminating a first level spirit monster is 30,000 and the second level is 300,000. The protagonist walks home after the ride and thinks about how he will spend his salary. The most important thing now is to get away from the walls and buy a more comfortable house. Anyway, the first goal of all is to become a permanent member within the action team and get a higher salary. At that moment something catches the protagonist's attention. He looks up and sees 17 floating. She says that mom and dad are waiting for him to come home to have dinner together. Liu Xian replies that it's a good thing she's here because she needs to tell something. Minutes later the 17 gives a smile and asks if he really wants to use his skills to make money, but to do so she asks what he will give in return. The protagonist promises again that chicken. The girl immediately rejects and Liu Xian makes suggestions of other toys, which does not seem to change the mood of the 17. He promises to give her any toy if she agrees to lend her skills. At that moment the girl points to something and says she wants to play with it. The protagonist sees an extremely drunk man relieving himself near a pole. 17 says wildly that he wants to unsew and sew again. She gives that strange smile that we already know and says that she really wants that man as her toy. The protagonist tries to control the little demon and says that she can't hurt anyone because it's against the law. 17 asks where the law was when they hurt her. The girl starts to go crazy while asking to control him. Her nails go all over the protagonist's body and he feels a chill down his spine. Suddenly his clothes start to tear and Lu Xian has the feeling of being broken in half. It's as if the girl had put him in an illusion, but back to reality, only his clothes were torn and a scar appeared in its place. The girl starts to call her brother stupid and asks if this scar still hurts. The protagonist takes a deep breath and with joy on his face asks if she doesn't know that now he is different from before. With the new job, she will be able to buy whatever she wants. 17 finally manages to calm down and laugh. That night she took the protagonist to a teddy bear store. They left there with several purchases in hand. The people around began to question why the boy talked to himself and why so many toys. The two make faces and then run back. They finally reach the place where 17 can take out all his anger by destroying those toys. The protagonist just observes. The crazy woman says that this is a lot of fun. He decides to ask her again if she will lend her powers. 17 she asks if he doesn't know that he can use his powers by force. The protagonist replies that he knows but he wouldn't do it without asking her permission. These words move 17 and she says that she will always be there when he needs her. The protagonist thanks her and then scolds her for tearing her work clothes. She replies that it's just sewing. The scene changes to Jing. She is informed that the protagonist continued to fund the orphanage even after he grew up and left. The man adds that even if he seems like a good person, she has to be careful when guiding the target to the action team. Jing replies that he understands and is confident in his decision. The man remains a little skeptical and says that it would be better if the protagonist took the test to ensure that he will not lose control. The girl, already out of patience, replies that he has to trust her and promises that he will report to Professor by as soon as he can. The man continues talking, so Jing takes off the phone and throws it on the floor of the car. She remembers about the cafe incident where Lu Xian showed precise body control instead of the spiritual power they expected. It makes her think that the protagonist is hiding something. The girl picks up a cigarette while saying that things are heading towards a disaster. In a little while, not even the high walls will be able to withstand it. That's why she can't let the protagonist take the test, because it's obvious that he's going to be proven crazy, but she says she sees no other way out than to use a madman to save the world. On the day next, Lu Xian has breakfast with his ghost family. The mother asks if he is ready for the new job and the boy confirms. She praises him, saying that he has grown up and now needs to eat twice as much to be well at work. Lu Xian tries to feed his sister's use while she says that her mother had a gift for him. The woman says that he was specially prepared for his new job. Suddenly the ghost father appears, almost breaking the door with his bad mood. He found out about the protagonist's new job and began to take out all his anger on the family members. Starting at 17, the guy curses the girl as trash and says that she is a good-for-nothing who always needs to count on the help of others. Then he grabs the protagonist by the neck and asks why he accepted this job. Lu Xian doesn't try to defend himself and replies that it was for the money. This is a totally unpleasant answer for the man, and he advances with his fist to punish the boy, but is immediately stopped by the woman, who uses the power of control over the man. With just 2 fingers she is able to suppress his strength. She says that he is the real trash in this house and also blames him for making them stuck here. The guy prepares to attack her, but he can't get past her aura of superiority. He throws the table away frustrated and then leaves. The protagonist tries to calm his sister by saying that everything is fine. The mother also says that things will be fine now. 17 asks if she will not give her brother's gift. The mother answers yes and asks to accompany her. In the next moment, the protagonist wears a new suit that was prepared especially for him, but when looking in the mirror it feels a little strange. The mother agrees and says she knows exactly what it is. She then takes off her glasses and says that now he looks much better, then hugs him and says that he is more beautiful every day. The protagonist thanks him. The mother replies that there is no reason to thank his family. She wishes him good luck in his new job and advises him to solve things by reasoning. He should also not forget to be polite to people regardless of who it is. Finally, with a smile and a frightening energy, the woman says that she will be there to protect him if something happens. A few hours pass and the protagonist finishes his first part-time job. He prepares to leave the building and go find the organization. His co-workers comment on the fact that he left on time today. Usually the protagonist went over his schedule to help others. The employees are sure he got a girlfriend. The boss doesn't seem too pleased with this. The protagonist finally arrives in the city he is supposed to patrol. The boy walks around and watches people's every step, passers-by live their lives normally, the place is just a little miserable. His sister accompanies the patrol and seems to have fun messing with people who can't see her. A few hours pass and the protagonist sits down to rest. He didn't see anything suspicious all day. 17 asks if nothing happened on his first day of patrol. Lu Xin thinks it would be better if they started work earlier, so for today it's enough, and tells his sister that they will return home. A few days later, the protagonist is called into the boss's office. The man is the typical boss when it comes to firing. He says that the company is not doing well and there is no way to keep another employee. The guy still says that Ching will replace him. The protagonist is taken by surprise because he was the one who trained Ching. Apparently he taught him so well that he lost his job to him. Lu Xin asks the boss to please give him a new chance, but a man seriously replies that the company has no time for his tantrum. The protagonist has no other choice and takes the belongings that are already organized on the table. He wonders who did it so lovingly. Suddenly a voice responds that Ching organized everything for him. The coworker next door says that she always told the protagonist not to help anyone. Now she had her job stolen by someone who taught her. The woman continues talking and Lu Xin starts to get angry. He thinks pick up the gun he received from Jing, but remembered the suggestions. A little later the boy holds the cell phone he received. He thinks about whether to bother Jing and decides to call anyway. The woman quickly answers and asks what happened. The protagonist replies that he had a problem. She screams thinking it's something very serious and everyone around is attentive. The protagonist notices a different agitation and begins to tell what happened until his resignation. Jing looks surprised to hear that the boy was patrolling. A few minutes later the protagonist sat waiting for Jing's call to return. His sister says she wants to make a toy with the people who fired him. Suddenly that boss runs to Lu Xin with two other people. The man tries to make peace with the protagonist and says he didn't know he knew Director Lu, in charge of the artifact laboratories in the capital. It seems that Lu Xin doesn't really know and he wonders who is this Director Lu. Anyway, the boss apologizes for firing him and says that Director Lu just called saying that his work ethic is very admirable. That's why they want the protagonist to return to the company and take on an important project. The man smiles a little embarrassed as he says that his dismissal was just a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, the protagonist is totally bewildered, asking how they could change his mind so fast. At that moment Ching approaches and says that it was never his intention to steal his work. Lu Xin replies that everything is fine. He believes that this project they are giving him must be something very big and bonus will probably be bigger. Ching asks to participate in the project with him and Lu Xin replies no. Everyone is silent. Suddenly the protagonist's phone starts ringing. The boss says that the boy can take as long as he wants and says goodbye. After being alone he answers the call and Jing asks if the dismissal problem has been solved. The protagonist answers yes and thanks her for her help. The girl takes a deep breath and starts to say that the protagonist already has a job that pays much better, then questions why he is still in this part-time job. Lu Xin replies that he receives 1,000 yuan there. Jing decides to go to the next subject and asks why he was patrolling. The boy replies that he received 10,000 yuan and thought he should work. It seemed very dishonest to receive money without doing anything. Jing shakes his head negatively, thinking that this boy is crazy, and says that he will give him his first mission. She explains that she just sent a transportation project to her company, so he will take this opportunity to meet Qin Ran, the head of the Sifang Transport Company. Jing explains that lately the Sifang Transport Company has been involved in 8 homicides. This means that his investigation is simply to find out if these homicides are murders or something else is going on. The protagonist asks what he should do. If it is murder, the girl replies that he should come back because the team will not worry about it, but if it's something like mental contamination he needs to report immediately. This answer doesn't please much boy. He doesn't understand how investigators can turn a blind eye to a crime involving 8 lives. Jing says that the organization will only interfere if it's a case of mental contamination. Anyway, he will get a reward if he completes the mission. This makes the protagonist happy, and his mood soon changes. Now he is prepared to solve the situation. Minutes later Lu Xin returns to work and realizes that his desk is organized. The employees around seem curious about the boy's return. Deep down the protagonist is still angry with Ching because he knows that the guy really tried to steal his job. He just didn't count on Lu Xin having good contacts that would make him return to the company. The boy soon remembers that Jing said that this investigation was too dangerous for ordinary people. Thinking about it, he approaches Ching saying that he thought better of it and decided to invite him to participate in the project. The two are in Cheng's girlfriend's car. The guy starts reading a form and says that the Sifong Transport Company is the largest transport company in the city. They are very big and difficult to access. Then he asks if the protagonist is sure he wants to contact them. Lu Xian fears that the Sifong Company is very difficult to deal with. It is quite possible that the real problem of homicides is mental contamination, because the transport company also delivers goods to the other side of the wall. The woman surnamed Chen, who is the alleged head of the company Sifong, is nothing more than a simple puppet. The real boss is called Qin Ran, a person of dubious character and who lived outside the walls for many years. He only went inside the walls when he created the company and needed to follow closely. At that moment, the protagonist answers the question by saying that he really wants to contact them because there are not many companies willing to deliver things outside the walls. Hours later, the three finally arrive at the Sifong company. It wasn't quite as they expected and Qin gets scared. The employees looked more like gang members. One of them tells the visitors to follow him. Tring tells the protagonist that none of these guys look like decent people. Lu Xian asks the couple to talk to the manager while he goes to take a look at the cars. The boy goes out and starts to observe the environment in general, but he doesn't see anything suspicious that might seem dangerous, except for the guys who are going to deliver food outside the walls. These are fearless. Suddenly something catches his attention. One of the cars has traces of red liquid. There was probably some struggle there. The protagonist kneels down to check when he hears someone screaming for help. Cheng is being beaten by the delinquents. His girlfriend cries, saying that she will call the police. Lu Xian thinks if this is a time to use the gun, but calms down and prefers to find out what happened first. Qing says that they thought the price was too high and proposed to lower it. That's when the guys went crazy and started beating Qing. Also, your financial books are all wrong. There will certainly be problems if you work with them. Suddenly the girl gets slapped in the face. The green-haired woman tells her to stop complaining. The protagonist is very confused whether to get a gun or not. He approaches the fight and a shirtless man asks if the boy is the leader. Then he says that the vehicle he wanted is already ready. The bald man makes it clear that if they came here looking for something, they can't back down. Lu Xian replies that he's right and asks to talk, but the guy replies that everyone is busy trying to survive and doesn't have time to talk. He asks the protagonist to just sign the contract and they can finish the job. Lu Xian replies that he can't sign a contract like that. The man starts laughing and asks the other delinquents what they should do with this guy's head. The protagonist is surrounded by the men. With no other option, he pulls the gun and points it at the men. Then he says that there is no way to sign a contract without talking first. The men are shocked. Lu Xian says that he thinks there is no need to use his fists, but if they try he will be at an advantage. Suddenly the men start laughing madly and mocking the protagonist, questioning if he feels safe with a gun. The guys arm themselves with a knife, clubs, chains and everything that can hurt. The first delinquent attacks from behind with a knife. Suddenly a shot is heard and everyone looks horrified. The guy was hit in the belly by a shot. The delinquents begin to wonder if it's a real gun. The protagonist points to a black-haired woman who appears behind everyone. This is Chen. She says that she didn't think that an office guy would shoot for real. The woman adds that she also uses a gun but she didn't prepare in advance, giving him the advantage. Anyway, she will let him get out today unscathed and hopes that they will meet in the future. Lu Xian he replies that he won't go out because they haven't talked yet. Chen is surprised that he still wants to talk after all this. The protagonist says that they need to agree on a price. Chen is annoyed by the way he talks because he seems to be not afraid. At that moment a guy smoking a cigar approaches and says that he has done business pointing a gun at someone's head a few times, but seeing someone brave enough pointing a gun at his people is the first time. This man is Qin Ran. Chen tries to talk to him, but Ran addresses the protagonist and asks him to put down the gun, promising that he will not do him any harm. After all, he is at an advantage. The scene changes to the two of them at a table. Qin Ran is eating as if he hadn't seen food for a month. The protagonist watches in silence. The guy offers and he replies that he is satisfied. Qin Ran begins to say that he has a very comfortable life within the walls, from food to wife and money. In a more serious tone he says that it is not good to enter a territory and threaten his people. However, he understands that his delinquents were not very friendly, so he asks the protagonist that they both continue their lives as if nothing had happened. Lu Xian agrees. The man then decides to enter a more interesting subject. He says that the protagonist has a different temperament and asks who sent him here. Lu Xian decides to get straight to the point and asks if he found anything strange. The man's mood changes radically and he pulls out a gun, then points at the protagonist and says that he is the cause of his problems. This was the reaction Lu Xian needed to make sure he found the right person. 17 quickly climbs the wall behind Qin Ran and waits for his brother's orders. The protagonist remembers that Jing said to investigate Qin Ran, but didn't specify how, so he will save time and get straight to the point. The protagonist explains that he only came to investigate if he had any problems lately. Qin Ran continues with the gun in hand and asks if Lu Xian is with the police. The boy realizes from the man's reaction that it would not be good to provoke him, or else he can actually shoot. He raises his hands and says that he is not with the police, then calls for 17. The girl just touches Qin Ran's arm and makes him drop the gun. Lu Xian takes the pistol for himself and again gets the upper hand. He then says that he is not investigating his problems. He is investigating whether he found any problems or not. Qin Ran looks confused to the sides, asking how it happened and how the boy managed to take his gun. Lu Xian asks again if he has found something strange lately, such as human corpses for example. The man feels very pressured and begins to observe a strong aura of the protagonist. Thinking about it, he decides to cooperate since his soul has been taken and he doesn't even know how. Qin Ran confesses that he really came across something strange. It was as if someone was trying to take something out on him, a kind of guarded grudge that if he told no one would believe it. Qin Ran's eyes turn red as he starts to tell the story. The guy remembers that things started after he bought some bear pills. The guy who sold it was called Cui Wang. He didn't find it strange because they both already bought merchandise from each other and never had any problems. But one day the seller, Wang, arrived to trade the pills and was alone. It was at that moment that Qin Ran found the perfect opportunity to eliminate the man and keep his pills. So he did and threw Wang's body to the wild animals. After that he sold the pills he stole. Qin Ran thought everything was fine until he came across a woman screaming for him. She introduced herself as Cui Wang and made it clear that she came to destroy his life. Qin Ran also remembers that she wanted him to return the goods. The protagonist finds it interesting that the woman's name is the same as the seller's. Qin Ran then reveals that he eliminated this woman as well after she came behind Wang. He says that he did it because he assumed that she was his wife. Her body was mixed with cement and he put it there on the platform. The guy says it as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He adds that after he did it, he felt that something was wrong and asked his men to investigate who that woman was. It turns out that woman was called Wang Ting and she worked in a clothing factory located in the South Zone. The investigations showed that she didn't even know who Cui Wang was. After 2 days that he eliminated this woman, 2 other people appeared. One of them said it was Cui Wang and the other introduced herself as Wang Ting. They said they wanted his life, but his men quickly put an end to them too. The protagonist realizes that so far there have been 4 people. Qin Ran continues the story and says that he has again opened an investigation against these other 2. That's when he found out that these 2 aggressors had nothing to do with each other and didn't even know who Cui Wang or Wang Ting were. After 4 more days, 4 more people came to him. As expected, he didn't know anyone, but this time these people went to his house and tried to attack directly in the throat. They looked like a bunch of crazy people and kept repeating that they were Wang Ting and Cui Wang. They all had a truly horrible look. The protagonist can already imagine what it can be. The guy says he put an end to these people also because he didn't know what to do, but there is something he needs to show. A few minutes after Lu Xian is taken to a basement, Qin Ran opens the door and a suffocating odor escapes. The protagonist covers his nose and soon sees that there are several people down there. Qin Ran reveals that when those last 4 people tried to attack him in his house, he decided that he was not going to eliminate them, so he left them locked inside the basement. His goal was to question them to find out who is setting him up, but he didn't even have time to ask why they started to tear each other apart. Besides, these people seemed so crazy that they attacked each other, even tearing off pieces of the body as if it were nothing, so the only way he found to end this suffering was to shoot them. The protagonist thinks for a while and concludes that it all started with that pill seller. People started coming in his name. First it started with 1 and then the number was multiplying. At that moment Lu Xin notices a sequence and shouts, asking how long it has been since the last 4 people came. Qin Ran replies that 7 days. The protagonist understands that tomorrow will be the 8th day. Based on the pattern they should appear again, and with a multiplied number of people this time. Lu Xin knows that he will face a big problem if he continues alone and says that he will report this to one person. But as soon as the protagonist picks up the phone and turns his back, a knife seems to his neck. Qin Ran says that he shouldn't call the police. The guy knows that it will be bad for him if that happens because in the end he eliminated 8 people. Then he threatens saying that even though Lu Xin has 2 guns, he is in greater numbers. The protagonist responds to the threats by saying that this is not what he is doing. He needs reinforcements because it is possible that this time 16 people will come. This means that they will be at a disadvantage. Qin Ran is shocked by this number. Suddenly the protagonist asks a question that makes the man much more afraid. He questions if Cui Wang knew where his house was. The man starts to tremble. Lu Xin says that there is a pattern in this case, and it doesn't matter how much he hides because these people will find him. He adds that maybe 16 people will come, but the man must remember that this number will continue to multiply and eventually he will not be able to escape. Qin Ran replies that in fact his biggest fear is the problem he will have with the police if this is reported. The protagonist asks if he prefers to be arrested or eaten by these people. The man thinks for a moment and drops the knife, saying that he trusts him. Lu Xin makes a silly face and asks if there was another option. He then calls Jing and tells him what happened. The girl replies that he did very well and says that now that she is sure that it is mental contamination, she will send a team of 3 people, all with a lot of experience. Jing reinforces that the protagonist needs to be aware because he is a mutant of the psyche. Probably the experience of the trio that she will send will not be as good as his instincts. She plans in the future to leave the leadership of the investigation to the boy, but for now he will still have to listen to her orders. Lu Xin replies that he understands. When he goes to talk about the payment, the call hangs up. He regrets not having asked before. 30 minutes later, a car from the organization arrives. The leader of the Special Mental Investigation Group introduces himself as Ching Rue. He says that he was ordered by Captain Jing. The protagonist says that he doesn't need to be so formal. The man then hands over a headset and says that they should use it to communicate with the analysis team. Lu Xin is delighted because he is going to wear something that he has only seen people of higher ranks wearing. The boy puts on the headset and a female voice introduces himself as Han Bing. From the analysis team, the girl says that from now on she will provide data and information to her team. Bing says that according to the report it looks like a new type of mental corruption incident that has not been found before. As a precaution suggests that the team first start the investigation to locate the source of the corruption and then carry out the cleaning work. She also asks them to arrest Qin Ran and all related people, then must ensure that they will not present any changes. With the arrival of psychic mutants, to finish, Bing makes it clear that if necessary they must eliminate Qin Ran. After all, he is the source of the problems. The protagonist is shocked to hear this. Jing also joins the call and wishes him good luck in the new job. The protagonist thanks him. Jing makes a quick analysis of the victims who went to Qin Ran. They really didn't know each other, but they were all corrupted by the desire for revenge. This means that there must be a place where all the victims' paths crossed and they were infected. Bing says that this place would most likely be where the source of the corruption is. He suggests sending some people to investigate the lives of the victims, specifically where they used to go. The protagonist believes that it will take a long time if they go to investigate one by one. Bing recognizes that it will be laborious, especially because some places do not have a security camera. Lu Xin says that she trusts the team, but tomorrow will be the 8th day and based on the previous patterns there will be more people being contaminated. Jing agrees with Lu Xin and decides that they will investigate only the person who started it. She shouts that everyone should be prepared with Chui Wang's information. Everyone agrees. A few hours pass. Bing goes over the important information he got. Everyone thought that the core of the contamination was the place where Cui Wang was eliminated, the abandoned industrial area to the south. But there are 3 other areas. Some residents reported that there was nothing strange in the first 3 areas, so there is only one last area left to be investigated, the terrain near the southern border. At this moment the protagonist gets out of the car and approaches the place. Bing informs that the terrain is complex. Everyone should be careful when investigating because there is a high chance that the source of contamination is really here. Lu Xin has a strange feeling. Since he arrived his sister has not appeared. Suddenly he hears a noise and sees 17 near the river. The girl gives that typical scary laugh and tells her brother that there is something fun here. Lu Xian approaches and asks what is fun inside the lake. The little demon replies that he doesn't know exactly, but feels that it is fun. The protagonist asks if she can use her skills in the water. 17 replies that he can try. He just touches her head and praises her for her courage, then approaches Cheng and asks if this equipment can be used underwater. Suddenly the boy notices something. Jing had said that this instrument had a high psychic rate, but 17 couldn't notice. This makes the protagonist wonder if her psychic abilities are not in the detection domain of this instrument. Ching answers his question by saying that the instruments should work well, but it is good to remember that the protective suit is not waterproof. If the contamination is down there, it is very dangerous. Anyway, the man puts himself under his orders. Lu Xian decides that he will go down while the men stay outside. Cheng is worried, but the protagonist says that anyway someone will have to take that risk. Jing asks if this is the last suspicious place and Bing confirms. At this moment the protagonist prepares. Jing says that this operation is too dangerous and he should not take the risk. Lu Xian continues to approach the lake until she shouts that she will resort to the special forces to drain all the water, so no one should enter. Minutes later a team arrives and starts draining all the water from the lake. Jing says angrily that dealing with mental contamination is a dangerous job. If it is not handled correctly, an uncontrollable disaster can occur, so they need to resort to safety always. The protagonist praises the girl's words and says that this is the power of teamwork. The next moment all the water is taken out of the lake. Jing asks the support units to leave, then instructs the investigation team to start the work. She reminds everyone that they still can't identify whether the source of contamination has a high or low transmission level, so most people will need to stay behind to prevent them from creating more hosts. The protagonist says that he now understands why the salary is so high. Jing gives an extra incentive to Lu Xian and says that he will request a bonus. After that the team enters the lake and begins to investigate. 17 quickly finds a crater and says that there is something fun here. The protagonist approaches and begins to hear some whispers. Suddenly the whole team hears screams coming from inside the crater. The voice asks Qin Ran not to hurt her. Jing and Bing also hear through the phone. The screams get more and more deafening and the team begins to fall into an illusion. The protagonist realizes that he has finally found the source of the contamination. At that moment several fish begin to fly out of the hole. Something similar to tentacles hits the team and they are thrown back. Lu Xian gets up and sees the investigation trio surrounded by tentacles. The guys are lifted into the air. The support unit looks at it horrified. The next moment the protagonist comes face to face with the monster responsible for the contamination. It seems that it has already reached a humanoid level. 17 quickly touches the protagonist and shares his skills with him. Lu Xian dodges the monster's attack. The investigation team remains trapped in the tentacles. Bing says that there has been an explosion of psychic power much greater than that of ordinary mutants, so they must retreat. Jing tries to contact Lu Xian and he does not respond. Bing tries to warn the entire investigation team, but he also can't make contact. At that moment the monster points Cheng's hand at the protagonist and starts shooting. The boy dodges easily, then hides behind a barrier. Bing informs him that the target is suspected to be a psychic creature above level 1. Unfortunately 3 armed members of the investigation team have already been infected, so he suggests evacuating the survivors and sending the city patrol team to exterminate the psychic creature. Jing agrees and says that he is already heading towards the place. In addition she asks Lu Xian to retreat immediately. The protagonist replies that he cannot go. Jing asks why he is saying this. The boy explains that the 3 members of the investigation team have not been infected, they are just being controlled. In addition, there is no way to go unnoticed by that thing, so he will have to try to deal with it. The girls beg him not to go, but 17 encourages him saying that he will be with him. The protagonist smiles and says that he is time for them to go. At that moment all 3 soldiers are controlled and shoot the boy. Lu Xian dodges easily, then jumps towards Cheng, who yells at the protagonist not to hurt him. Lu Xian holds the monster by the neck and manages to free Cheng. Then he goes towards the other soldiers and does the same thing. At this moment the image of the protagonist is being transmitted to the organization. They wonder who this boy is. Bing realizes that this monster is on another level. He is able to drag 3 armed military personnel into the air and control him. This means that he has insane contamination capabilities. Bing fears that the protagonist's spider skills are not enough. On the other hand, Lu Xian is confident. At this moment Jing enters the room and starts watching the broadcast. The The man next to him informs him that the surveillance team decided to retreat quickly after being rescued by Lu Xin. They were probably not infected since they were conscious. At this moment Jing orders the protagonist to retreat now that everyone is already saved, but he refuses and runs to the core with 17. The monster gets bigger and bigger. It multiplies and advances in different directions to surround it, but the protagonist and his sister don't seem to find this a problem. In fact, they get more excited. At that moment, he jumps towards one of the clones and holds his head. The team follows the scene with the cameras at a safe distance, when suddenly they see that monstrous thing turn into a tree and shadows begin to emerge from it. The protagonist continues the attack, and this time the shadows are easily attacked. He notices that these shadows seem to be the method of attack of that tree, but for some reason he feels a sense of familiarity when he looks at them. Anyway, it's not something that deserves your attention now. He then turns to 17 and says he'll leave it up to her. The girl smiles and agrees. The scene changes to the organization's room, and Bing says that he found some reports of workers who stayed for a period in that place. They reported seeing the shadow of a creature that has tentacles and human features. It seems that the human shadow at the top of the vine is the person who seeks revenge against Qinran. The 8 victims were only contaminated by this rage. Jing observes the unfolding of the scene where the protagonist appears trying to use his own method to clean the source of contamination. Bing reveals that the creature has a certain level of self-awareness as it started the attack by infecting the members of the investigation team, but what she doesn't understand is why the target is Qinran. Jing replies that the contamination happened because of the people who wanted revenge against Qinran. The first person was Cui Wang. He is the key to the problem. The pink-haired girl hears this and asks if it's not just rescuing Cui Wang's corpse to solve the problem. Jing replies that under normal circumstances to solve the incident it would be enough to understand his logic and find the root of the problem, but she believes that the protagonist's method may be better. At this moment Lu Xin climbs the tree at full speed. He challenges the monster to attack. Meanwhile 17 tries to eat the tree. Lu Xin yells at her, telling her not to put her mouth on this thing, but the girl starts to tear it off piece by piece. The monster is affected and screams in pain. He gets very agitated and starts to move all the branches of the vine, then throws the protagonist and the girl away. 17 falls to the ground with a piece of the branch in his mouth. The protagonist asks what that was and realizes that the monster simply ran away. He is surprised to see that the mental creature felt afraid. At this point Jing orders all units to use the opportunity to start cleaning up the source of contamination. They comply. An hour passes and the team finds a corpse in the contamination area. Jing asks if the protagonist can confirm that the identified corpse is Cui Wang. Lu Xin replies that this is not Cui Wang, it is Qinran. Suddenly the soldiers point to the Qinran who was alive behind them. The man does not, he understands nothing. The protagonist approaches and asks who he is. The guy asks if Lu Xin has gone crazy and replies that he is Qinran. Everyone is confused. Jing gives permission for the protagonist to tell the truth to the guy, then asks the guards to be prepared to shoot. At that moment the protagonist asks who is the corpse and if he is the real Qinran. The guy looks bewildered and asks what corpse it is. Lu Xin replies that a little while ago his team found the source of contamination at the bottom of the lake. It was a corpse. That corpse was him. Then the protagonist says that Qinran has passed away a long time ago and questions who is in his body now. The guy starts to stutter and asks how he was dug up if he is alive. The soldiers continue to have the target in their sights. The protagonist looks at Qinran and realizes why he was finding those shadows familiar. They looked like Qinran. At that moment the guy starts to sweat cold and suddenly runs, saying that the protagonist lied to him because he assured him that he would have safety. The sniper says that they will end up losing the target. Jing gives confirmation to take out without thinking twice. A flurry of bullets fly towards the man. He is hit and falls to the ground lifeless. His true form appears and they realize that this is not Qinran. Bing shouts, asking if this is Cui Wang. A little later the team responsible for the analysis of corpses arrives and begins to remove the bodies. The protagonist sits and observes the scene, remembering that Cui Wang has always been treated as a victim from the beginning. Suddenly a helicopter flies above him and lands. Jing descends and appears. The first thing she says is that she will claim a special bonus for him, with this task already completed. Lu Xin asks what exactly this incident was. Jing says that a specific team of analysts will be assigned to the task. At this moment Shui Wang's body is placed inside a special box to be investigated. Jing goes on to say that it is not uncommon for incidents to occur without explanation, so they just need clues and they will find the logic behind it. She is confident because this incident has many clues. Soon a doubt arises in her mind and she decides to ask if it is true that they heard fish talk. Lu Xin remembers exactly the voice voices blaming Qin Ran and saying that they wanted his life. Jing replies that she didn't hear anything through the headset. This means that they were a little affected by the source of contamination and had hallucinations. The only doubt she has is which Qin Ran was the target of the mutant monster. Lu Xian seemed to have no answer to that. The woman takes a deep breath and says that it's time for them to come back. The scene changes to the organization's office. The protagonist is silent while 17 devours all the candies he has on the table. She says she really liked it and he encourages her to eat. Suddenly the door handle turns and Lu Xian looks scared. At that moment Jing enters and he starts to pick up the candy packages, pretending that he was the one who ate it. The woman looks surprised and wonders if he likes to eat sweets after using his skills. She approaches and talks about the result of the investigation. No remaining mental power has been detected in the lake. This means that this incident of mental contamination can be declared a successful cleansing. At this moment she shows the result of the laboratory. The samples collected from the place where Cui Wang's body was dumped correspond to Qin Ran. The protagonist replies that he understood perfectly. Jing has the impression that the Lu Xian next to her is totally different from the one she saw in that lake, fighting against contamination. The girl puts the papers on the table and decides to end her curiosity. She says that in normal situations the organization can only perform the cleaning when it finds the logic and the main part of the source, but this time they didn't find either of the two, and even so the protagonist managed to perform the cleaning. So she questions what skill he hid from her. The protagonist said he doesn't understand exactly what these are abilities she speaks. Jing replies that based on a previous evaluation, he belongs to the spider class with C-grade abilities. His mental energy level is 100. Normally a psychic mutant would have a lower mental energy level than the mutant monster of similar level, so the organization always tries to prevent its men from fighting the curse. But that's not what the protagonist did. In fact, he eliminated 2 higher-level mutant curses with a very direct and violent approach. The organization is not used to seeing this often. Lu Xian replies that he did nothing. In fact, his sister dealt with the 2 curses. The boy takes one of the packages and says that she was the one who ate it. Jing, totally skeptical, asks where her sister is now. Lu Xian points to a place and says that she is smiling right now. At that moment 17 appears upside down in front of Jing's face, but the woman can't see and thinks that the protagonist is lying. Anyway, she has one more question to ask. The woman questions why the protagonist attacked the tree even after she ordered him to refuse, in addition to asking how he already knew that the 3 members of the surveillance team were not infected. The protagonist replies only that he could see that the team was not contaminated. While he talks, 17 begins to climb the entire room. Lu Xian explains that she saw that those 3 were just being controlled and did not become part of the monster. In addition, her sister was responsible for most of the work. At that moment Jing notices something strange in his speech, because he said he could see all the parts of the monster. She then questions if the protagonist is saying that he can see the distorted psychic field. Lu Xian is surprised and asks if she can't. The woman decides to end the conversation there and asks him to go home to rest. The protagonist agrees and gets up from his chair. Jing asks him not to worry because he's not in trouble. The abilities of psychic mutants have varied since the Red Moon incident. The protagonist scratches his head awkwardly and replies that he wasn't worried. In fact, she just wanted to know about the reward. Jing replies that it will soon be deposited in her account. Lu Xian quickly leaves the room. 17 tells the brother that today many people looked at him with bad intentions. The protagonist asks her to be silent and says that those people pay her salary. Meanwhile, inside the room, Jing seems a little worried that the protagonist has shown new abilities. This ends up confirming that he may go crazy one day. The girl takes a deep breath and presses a red button on the table. The next moment several projections of people appear. An old man says that Lu Xian is really able to visualize the psychic field. There are high chances of having exceeded 300 mental energy. Another man, Shin, says that they are here to discuss if such a dangerous mutant can continue in the organization. Jing replies that the boy had a brilliant performance today. Shin says that Lu Xian showed signs of multiple personality disorder and they can't trust it. He fears that one day the protagonist will go crazy for good and put everyone's life at risk. Jing asks what the man is suggesting then. The guy replies that putting Lu Xian always under surveillance can guarantee safety, but it is good to remember that in the end he is just a patient with an extremely unstable mental condition. Jing loses her patience when she hears this man's words towards the protagonist. She starts screaming, saying that Shin can't forget that it was this patient who saved everyone in today's mental field. Someone sitting at the end says that Minister Shin's concern is understandable because the boy's mental energy level may be even higher than everyone suspected. At that moment everyone at the table recognizes this man's voice. "It's Director Bai." The man replies that he knows exactly the reason for the meeting. From the report, there is an 80% risk of this boy going crazy. But before he gets to one conclusion is that everyone reads the document he brought. 3 days later, the protagonist arrives for another day of work. He notices his colleagues looking a little strange. Suddenly his phone rings and the boy answers. Bing is on the other end of the line and says that as much as the contamination has been completed, she has an obligation to pass all the investigations to those who participated in the case. Lu Xin thanks her and asks her to go ahead. The girl then begins to report that it is the corpses of Qin Ran and Chui Wang were sent to be sealed. At the special pollutant shrine, the area where Qin Ran's corpse was found was not detected any residue of mental energy. As for the 3 members of the surveillance team, they are 100% fine and have gone on vacation. The protagonist laughs at the conclusion of the facts. Bing soon informs him that the reward of 3,000 yuan has been transferred to his account. In addition to the reward, Boss Jing has provided an extra 6,000 yuan and a full evaluation that should happen in a few days. So, he asks him to prepare. The protagonist asks worried, "What kind of evaluation is this?" Bing replies that it is an evaluation of his mental state and abilities. The girl gives a smile and says that this always happens before getting a permanent job. Lu Xian breathes a sigh of relief and agrees, then asks curious what exactly triggered the incident. Bing replies that it is a little confusing. The corpse of Qin Ran that was excavated at the bottom of the lake matches the DNA of Cui Wang, but the one who turned into Cui Wang after receiving the shots from the team, the DNA collected matches that of the skin collected from Cui Wang's house. The 3 subordinates who accompanied Qin Ran admitted that he eliminated Chui Wang. They even helped throw the corpse, but after that day the 3 subordinates noticed a sudden increase in Qin Ran's appetite. The protagonist is confused by so much information and asks what the final conclusion is. Bing replies that the team is not very sure, but believes that that mutant altered some memories. Lu Xian is shocked to hear that even memories can be altered. Bing explains that the research department's hypothesis is that Qin Ran is just a victim of the contamination. His true identity could be Cui Wang, but he didn't know that and thought it was Qin Ran. The lake monster's ability is basically to swallow and create another creature. So a clone of him was produced when he was infected. In fact, there is no way for the organization to give an accurate conclusion, but they believe that Chui Wang was severely contaminated and transformed into Qin Ran. The guess of the research department is that after Chui Wang fully transformed into Qin Ran, he ended up taking all his memories. The protagonist tries to understand and nothing makes sense in his head. Bing says that there is no need to worry because the highly professional equipment will ensure that this case of contamination does not reappear. After that she says goodbye. Suddenly a notification arrives on the protagonist's phone informing that he received a transfer of 36,000 yuan. The boy celebrates and says that he is now rich. A few hours after Lu Xian arrives on the street of his house, his sister is waiting for him. Suddenly when Lu Xian approaches, he is attacked. An arrow flew at full speed towards him. 17 is faster and takes control of the protagonist's body, so he manages to dodge without being hurt. Lu Xian tries to understand who did it and a blonde guy approaches. He says that the protagonist really is very agile.